and I realized that I hadn't gone live. Oops. But probably for the better, because I may have been rambling a little bit. Hey, Pero. So I'm out on the canal again. I haven't been out here for like maybe 2 years, because they were doing all this construction here, and they ruined the canal and they ruined the road. And actually, this path I'm on is a freaking mess. Which is, yeah, dude, yeah, this is like, this used to be cool here, dude. And now it's like totally feels dangerous. Let's see. Well, the idea is I used to come out here every day and do 12,000, 15,000 steps. And I haven't done it in a long time. I mean, I've been going to the gym and stuff, but I think I injured my meniscus the other day on the elliptical. So I'm thinking maybe try walking for a little while. Although I think elliptical is probably lower impact, right? It's something different anyway. Anyway. In the chat that I just ended, because I wasn't recording it apparently, I had been discussing the Thiegel. Discussed a lot of stuff. But I was at the Thiegel, so I'm just going to pick up there because that's where my mind was. So I've been doing this Vajrayana class, right? Finished it. And doing a lot of reading in this area. The Vajrayana. Oh, like a dead animal here. There's like, been reading a lot of material around the Thiegel, around Vajrayana generally. And Vajrayana really appeals to me. There's like a, or I think Bon / Vajrayana, so it's kind of like, it includes aspects of shamanism, Tantra, and Dzogchen. So it includes all sort of 3 areas of interest. And it's got a good vibe to it for some reason. Plus, I've run into this Vajrayana Lama here. He's online, but he lives in Argentina. He comes to Chile a lot, and he initiates people as lamas. So that's kind of an interesting development. Wow. There's some mega bones here on the ground, like a cow's femur. So yeah, Lama Fede, he's quite knowledgeable, high energy, super positivity guy. So great vibe, great vibe. And so I did his level 1 course, which is very basic, not challenging in any way, but quite interesting. And there was a whole bunch of practices, but essentially it culminates into the Heart Sutra and the recitation of the Prajnaparamita mantra, which I keep forgetting when I'm on, like, when I'm trying to explain to people, I forget what it is. It's Para. I forgot that again. But you recite it a lot. And the whole thing with the Vajrayana stuff, you do a lot of recitations of texts, which at first I was kind of like, I don't know, but it does, you get these accumulations of the good energy coming off of the text, which I kind of recognize from the Bhagavad Gita, you know? So it works. But one of the big things from the Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra is this concept of the Thiegel. So the Thiegel is the word for the, like a sphere or circle of energy, which emerges. Now, as I mentioned, as many times, I've been putting quite a lot of effort into the Franzberg Dawn Key to the True Kabbalah stuff, which is the contemplation of letters, which I find really, really rewarding. It's been amazing, that stuff. Really amazing. But of course, in other practices, you have the same thing. So I've also spent quite a lot of time contemplating Sanskrit letters. So I learned the Sanskrit alphabet visually. I still don't have the I still don't have the I don't have the letters associated with the actual sounds yet, but I can visualize all the letters around all the chakras, which is amazing. Something happens when you contemplate the letters on the chakras, and it turns out this is I mean, it's one of these things, you know, you're doing it, and then you realize, you discover later that's actually a Sri Vidya practice, which is one of the big Tantra communities. They do a lot of the contemplation of the Sanskrit letters, and so that's been really amazing. And so I've been working with it kind of like with the Bardhan stuff. Of course, I don't know any Sri Vidya gurus around here, you know. So yada yada yada. I bump into this guy Fede, who's a Lama in the Vajrayana tradition, and so, you know, you can't always get what you want, you know, but you might get what you need. So I figured, you know, I'll just double down on this guy. So I did his course. There's another course coming up, and that course, which I just did, is really basic. It's only 8 weeks, after which I think next week there's a transmission, a couple of transmissions from that, like into various specific Vajrayana traditions. And then the next course is coming up. So that's like an 18-month course. So that's like the serious one. So I think the 8-week one's just to sort of let you figure out if you want to do it. It was really basic, but it did come with this focus on the Heart Sutra, which revolved a lot around the there's like a dead animal around here. Revolved a lot around the letter A. What is it? So they tend, my understanding of it is, in Vajrayana, they're not actually, what is going on here? Am I on the right path? I feel like I'm in the right, hold on a second, let me just be safe here. Not good to do a live video and suddenly see me falling off a cliff edge, right? There we go, okay. I think this is safer. Yeah, so they don't seem to do a whole lot of like, at least not now. There's not, they tend to focus on a few letters, not all the letters of the Tibetan alphabet, from what I understand. Although you could do it, because the Bardhan stuff, the Kabbalistic magic will work with any letter structure can represent a ray. So you could meditate on that all you wanted to without any problems. But the letter A is also, it corresponds pretty closely to the letter A in the Bardhan system, which is correspondence is blue sky, color of blue, air element, right? Same in Vajrayana. And that seems to be, I feel, well, it almost feels like there's been a change from the contemplation of the A. It's really interesting, which is not surprising because I do contemplations of English letters and those have effects too. I mean, it's like really surprising how profound the effects are. And of course, if you were to call this magic, theoretically, you're dealing directly with divine powers yourself. So there's less karmic consequences for that. There's still karmic consequences, but it's not like signing a contract with a spirit or something like that. You know, it's just it's a cleaner thing. Unless, of course, you're working with 2 letters. And when you're working with 2 letters, you're actually working with, that's the beginning of like working with other people. So if you're doing healing or something, in that context, you are provoking karmic responses. This is the tricky part here. I almost always, well, in the past, I almost always slid down here uncomfortably. Okay, so I'm gonna have to like brace myself here so I don't fall down. Let's just see, there we go, that's me. Oh, it does switch. See, when I was recording before, I was using the iPhone camera. It didn't want to switch around. I think here you can switch it in the live. Can I switch? There we go. So this little pathway here, kind of got a little cliff face here, pathway leading to a drop. The drop's not that steep, but there's a drop there. And back. Oh, that's really useful. Okay, that's nice. That's a good, it allows me to talk, walk and talk with a bit more efficacy, I suppose. Yeah, so yeah, let me just get down here. This is like still pretty sketchy here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's good. Yeah, so fuck. Here, let me just turn this around so you can see where I'm going. Yeah. So the letter A. So the letter A is air element, intellect, swords. I mean, you can start, these are not Vajrayana associations, right? But certainly if you were doing Bardon work, you would make those associations, and associations are very similar. And it is in Vajrayana associated with the air element in creating space, right? Creating space, which has been really remarkable, actually. Now, to be fair, I'm doing lots of different practices, right? Let me just switch this around. Sombra, shade. We're just coming up summer here, but today has been really crappy. But the sun came out just as I came out to start recording. Anyway, by the way, I'm not looking at the chat here. I don't know if is there a chat here? I haven't been looking at it if there's a chat. Chat? Is that chat? I don't know. Yeah, so the letter A, it creates space. But like, who cares, right? I mean, why don't you just like evoke a letter to like get money, man, right? Or why don't you just evoke a letter to like get love and money, or to get whatever, right? Which you can do. And those seem like, yeah. But the letter A, now as I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of practices. I've been evoking Hecate every day, been evoking Aphrodite every day, just because Aphrodite showed up in the Hecate evocation. So I figured I'd start evoking Aphrodite too, which has been really surprisingly cool. Like, the whole Greek pantheon is like, it's really cool. And I was pretty sure I would never be doing evocations of Greek spirits, but dude, it's just really great vibrations from all those geezers. This is a little steep here. Hold on a second. Okay. So the so who knows? But I've anyway. My point is, I've been feeling this palpable difference, and yeah, I just remembered. I'd forgotten I can tweak the stabilizer. I'd forgotten you can tweak it. There's a trigger, so you can change like the angle. That's actually better. Well, let me. Actually, I think the way you want to do this is that. No, that's too. Sorry about this, technical problems. The idea, I think, is you want to have the head with some head space. I can't believe how breathless I am here. I'm doing an hour in the elliptical every day. Pretty hard. Tore like minor meniscus damage last week, so I'm taking it easy, which is why I'm out walking. And a bunch of practices, but the letter A in particular, has been really powerful. I'm going to touch something. Hopefully it doesn't end the video. Oh, that's really interesting. I had no idea that was possible. That was creating a highlight on the video. So in the past, like when I did these videos, you could see like a chat, but I can't see that now, so I guess I'm not answering any questions. But letter A, I'm getting distracted. It creates space. So anyway, while other forms of contemplation may seem like a more direct path to getting the outputs you want, a lot of the Vajrayana stuff, they tend to use A for everything. And I gotta be honest with you, I've been doing it quite a bit, and it's, yeah, I think it's really powerful. Like contemplating A, the Tibetan letter A, with all its associations, or A with the Bardonian associations, pretty much the same thing, but it creates spaces around whatever you're focused on. So for example, if you're focused on some kind of trauma in your life, you can invoke letter A. So you often see this. So for example, in that book I was talking a lot about a few years ago, The Presence Process, which is basically a plant-inspired meditational series, which is in this book by, what's his name, Brown, something Brown. He's got this book called The Presence Process. And in The Presence Process, he's talking about how you can, it's a beautiful book about programmed meditations about overcoming the inner child and childhood trauma. And he learned these lessons from doing extensive San Pedro, I think, or retreats. But you can tell it's pretty cool. It's very simple, but just programmed and cool. Slightly shamanic at the end of it. So one of the things in that book also, though, is you're meditating around these things. And this, I think this happens a lot with like trauma or somatic therapy, is you tend to like refill the pain. You enter into the pain, and then you would go into a meditation, or you'd allow it to feel it, or you can feel it in your body, and then do somatic physical therapy on it, or in this case, evoke the letter A into that space, or well, there's no space. The letter A creates the space which allows all the conscious knots to relax. So I gotta be honest with you, I found like really surprisingly powerful results from just the letter A. Like really, like I wasn't thinking of it. I was like thinking, okay, let's do the letter A just to follow along with the course, who cares? But no, it's like you doing that, it's kind of like, oh, this has kind of been like what I've been wanting all this time. So it might be something to look into. So that level 1 class is, that's available to anybody. If you look up Tantric Sorcery, L1, Lama Fede, Fede. Fede is like that's an abbreviation of a Spanish name. I can't remember what it is, Federic? I can't remember. Fede, but that's widely available. It's cheap, it's like $60, 8-week course. He's got a few courses, and he does transmissions and stuff too. So there's like a transmission next week, I think, a couple of transmissions, post class. And like I said, he initiates people to and above the Lama level. So he just did an initiation ceremony for a new Lama like a couple of weeks ago. And he's based in Argentina, close to Chile. So I may go down that path just because it couches my experiences in like an official tradition, which may not be necessary, but it's like, it's just a nice sort of backbone kind of a thing. Although, you know, a lot of it is based on, it's funny that, like when you read like a lot of the advanced Vajrayana books, it all comes down to using sexual symbolism consciously. So like people like think Tantra is about sex. I mean, it can be, but to me that's like very low level. But there's the evocation of the sexual metaphors. There's one specifically where you visualize a white drop coming from the crown chakra, coming from above into the crown chakra, which represents insemination by divinity, right? So you do have to go there. And so the funny thing is you think, oh, I have to go there, but the act of going there forces you to confront whatever your problems are in some ways, you know. And it also has an effect too, just by itself, metaphorically. But there is this, on a sort of level of the psychology, where you have to sort of confront the metaphors, which I've been saying for years, you know, like about the lotus being the yoni, right? I mean that's what it is. But yeah, dude. So, but the funny thing is to see it like written down in like official scriptures, stuff that you've been doing for years. You just discovered it by yourself, and you're like, oh, I knew I was right with this stuff, right? I knew that wasn't like that crazy. The beautiful Kyoto Valley, or it's the Aconcagua Valley. I'm feeling kind of stressed out here, like cardiovascularly, which feels odd, yeah. So yeah, the letter A. Oh, fuck. Almost bit of dust. Letter A. And again, this like, it's encouraging to see that, and it sort of wraps back around into the Bardonian stuff, because with the Bardon stuff, you do combinations of letters, right? And so, and the thing with Bardon too is like, it seems like in Tibetan, they don't do it formally, but it kind of happens by default anyway, because by default we tend to think of things in different ways, right? So if I even say think of the letter A, I mean, immediately you're going to visualize the letter A, right? Which is kind of more of a physical representation. And then you might think, okay, it represents space. And when you move into representational metaphorical stuff, I mean, that's kind of moving into like the language of the astral mental sphere, right? And so by default, you're doing this. Now in Bardon, that's done formally. You formally contemplate the letters and actually everything using the physical, mental, astral, and akashic realms. So the whole of initiation into hermetics, all the practices are based on balanced exercises through each realm. So every chapter, every step is practices in each realm. So by the time you get to the true Kabbalah, contemplating the realms, astral, physical, mental, etc., of the letters, doesn't seem strange. That doesn't seem like they do that formally in the Vajrayana, but it happens by default. But no, it's not like a formal practiced contemplation. So maybe the Hermetic stuff's more advanced, who knows, but Sifu Mark Rasmus, who's the Bardonian Qigong master, who's got a paid Vimeo channel where he teaches the advanced Qigong as well as Bardonian magic and the Kabbalistic letter contemplation and evocation. He's got, like, I kind of learned this stuff for myself, so I figured it out in my own way. But it's interesting to see other people how they do it. So the way he does it is when he's contemplating stuff in the physical, he's literally down like in the legs contemplating it, or like the root chakra, if you will, right? And then if he's in the astral, he moves up into the belly, and that's that is kind of like how it's done in Tibetan too. You do sort of move the A, for example, into the different zones of the body, which is what I'm saying. They're not talking about it specifically like it's the different realms, but they're kind of doing it, you know. Rocks falling here. We don't got a rock slide. So so yeah, the contemplation, and in the Bardonian system, if you're doing more than one letter, you can contemplate, for example, G, which like in the physical and astral represents abundance, and then like the mental represents pure joy and this kind of thing. And then you can also evoke another letter at the same time. So you can have one letter in the physical, another letter in the astral, and you do sort of a dual contemplation. Now what's interesting about this is like the letters also have like note connotations, like musical note connotations. So if you were to do G, which has the F, you could also do D, which has the letter C associated with it. So now you can just, it becomes really convenient, because F and C is like an F major chord. It's not F major, but it's like an F. You can hum or visual. It's not visualizing, it's aurically imagine the F chord, right? As you're visualizing the colors. And what happens is that builds the thegel. So the thegel is a sphere of energy, right? Which, now what's funny is I never really thought of it as a sphere of energy, but I certainly felt this completely, I don't want to say it's intoxicating, because intoxicating implies bliss. It is blissful, but it's like, it's more neutral than blissful. It's got this like pure consciousness vibe to it, which is beyond bliss. All right, so you're just sort of in this space of, I mean, I guess it's not formlessness, because you are visualizing letters, but you're sort of in the outskirts. You're in the sort of realms between form and formlessness. And so it's quite easy to slip into formlessness and back and forth. It's actually, it's a pretty cool place to hang out, actually, because it's got this meta sort of technological vibe. It's got a technological vibe because you're in this technological space, and it's like the technology is so subtle. That's why nobody believes it. The only way you can really, I was giving my mother a meditation the other day. So I was saying, like, one of the things you can do is like meditate on the air coming into your nose, meditate on the air at the back of your nose, where it's sort of connecting to the face. Meditate on the air at the back of the throat as it passes the mouth. Meditate on it as it goes into the esophagus, and then again as it comes into the lungs. So it's like five points of contact with the breath, right? But what's interesting about that, if you really can focus on it, there's real different levels of friction, perceived friction, right? So like at the point of the nose, you're in the physical world, right? That's like, it feels really physical, but by the time you get into like the esophagus and the lungs, maybe it's because the tissue is so sensitive and soft there, but it's like a whole different, it's like frictionless and like ethereal, and yeah. But you can imagine that's a pretty subtle distinction, right, between those spaces. But if you can perceive the difference in subtleties, then you might be able to perceive the technology, right? Because that's kind of like the starting place for the technological stuff, where you start seeing the but there's mechanics in consciousness. So I put a post on the community months ago, because as I was doing it, as I was contemplating consciousness, I suddenly became aware that, dude, it's like it's like the mechanics of a watch. So I'd been looking at watches. I haven't worn a watch in years, but I was looking at one, and I was looking at a few watches, and I'd never really been into watches before, but I thought, you know what the hell, I'll just look. So I started looking into it, and then you start getting into like the mechanisms and how they work, and there's all kinds of interesting things that happen with the springs. So obviously there's one, I don't know the mechanics of the watch, but there's one spring which kind of keeps the time moving, right? But then there's mechanisms which can create looping structures. So it might go click, click, click. So that one wound spring can create varieties of types of mechanistic outputs. I guess in a way, it's like if you have a drill, you could convert that to a linear force, right? So you could have a rotational force and convert that to a linear force. And so in the same way, you can do the same thing with a spring, and you can also create like looping things, right? So for example, if you had like a gear structure that was only clicking once every 4 times, it would give you like segmentations. Now, in context of consciousness, that's extremely unsophisticated, but you find structures like that. And actually, specifically the looping structure, because I saw that in one, I saw this exploded view 3D animation of a watch mechanics, and it was showing how it created this. It was like some advanced chronograph or watch where they were changing a graphic on the face or something, and it was looping. And so the looping doesn't lend itself from a linear motion from a spring. So they create a mechanism which converts that motion to something else. I found it quite illuminating, because obviously one of the things that can happen to people, especially doing psychedelics, for example, is they get stuck in loops, right? Why? Why am I stuck in a loop? So it was interesting to see, wait a minute, it's mechanistic maybe, right? There's a mechanism. And so what's interesting is in the watch, the mechanisms are actually controlled by like structures. And in consciousness, those structures could be karmic knots or whatever, right? Energy blocks. Which the energy is flowing, but it's not strong enough to dissolve the karmic structure. This is obviously a huge extrapolation, but it feels about right to me. Okay, hold on a second, let me just switch this around. Yay! Haven't been here to the canal in quite some time, doing the walk down the canal. And I got this annoying, you probably noticed a lot of people in blogs, I've got this, they get the COVID cough, the post, so there's always this annoying thing. See, I'm not really convinced, I mean, it could be COVID, but like, I've also had this recurrent shingles, which I've been having to medicate quite a lot for that, actually, because it comes back frequently. And at first I didn't care, but then the medication started making me dizzy and whatnot, and so I had to, like, you know, really tweak dosage and stuff. But like, you know, when I'm medicated, the cough goes away. So I think what happens is the shingles is like it's a virus which is occupying your body and your nerves, you know, and it won't go away. And I think it's spread through my body. It's in my eye, which is a bit bothering. Obviously, you don't want to go blind or anything. So I'm pretty much on top of this stuff. I'm trying to find some good plants to help me keep it at bay, because it responds well to medication. And actually, full disclosure, it responds very well to medication and vanishes unless you do specific activities which drop your resistance to viruses. Beer, right? That kind of thing. Which interestingly is one of like, booze, for example, is one of the things which is really like that letter A stuff. It's really like, I think I call this stuff legacy behaviors. It's really loosened up all that stuff, just like becomes like, oh, whatever. Like you in the context of watch mechanics, it's kind of like unraveled those springs so that you're like, you just don't even, those mechanisms aren't intact anymore, which is interesting. Almost as if they've been stretched out. Space has been created in them, right? Letter A, creating space, right? Energy blocks are like, they're like knots of energy. Well, different kinds of energy, right? It reminds me of something else. Different knots of energy. So one of the things I mentioned I haven't been doing many videos, but a couple of months ago, I guess, I was talking about how Rasmus, the Sifu Qigong Bardonian master, he does this stuff where like he can transmit power to you, but people actually fly across the room from the generation, which I find very impressive, you know. But like but he's working with fundamentally with what Bardon calls vital energy, which is like the sort of most immediate visceral energy we feel. But it depends on who you are, right? So that visceral energy, I have not been connected to that so much. I've been connected way more to the astral and above. And I kind of like ignored the visceral stuff. I was able to access it and stuff, but I thought it was like a crutch. So I was moving into like pure consciousness. But I think, as I mentioned, that probably was an error. So I've kind of been going back to that and thinking about it a lot more. Somebody asked me in one of these videos a while ago, they said to me, Scott, do you think sexual energy really matters? Like you should like semen retention, all that stuff? I'm like, it just doesn't seem to make a difference to me, you know? It's like the Kundalini is always there. If I meditate, it's just, it doesn't make a difference. But I think I was wrong about that. So because that energy is on the vital energy plane, which I'm not that connected with. And the reason is because I reckon is, who knows why this happens, but there seems to be a thing where some kids get, I think this is part of what soul retrieval is. Like at some point you disconnect with the body, right? You disconnect with the body and you, because of trauma or whatever, and so you might become an imaginative kid or you start doing other stuff, right? Which seems like a reasonable response. But essentially what it is you've left the body. And it's quite a subtle, okay, there's a big plant here and there's wasps. Let's hope they don't bite me, sting me. Okay. So you leave the body. And so if there was a difference from, you know, semen retention, I mean, you probably wouldn't even notice that anyway because you're not in your body most of the time. Maybe you're an intellectual, right? You're just thinking about ideas all day, or you're thinking about imagination all day, or whatever it is, right? Thinking about God all day, but you're not in the body. So the whole Bardonian system is about balancing the four elements. And so that, coming back to your body section, corresponds with like somatic therapy. Interestingly, in the Tibetan literature, there's a very interesting practice of meditating on the color yellow in the spleen. Yellow being the color of the earth element, spleen being the organ of the earth element, and meditating on that and evoking the elemental goddess into the spleen. If you want to read about it, it's in that book, what's it called? Energy, light, and it's on the community section on the posts. There's an image of it. That's in that book, that practice. Haven't done it yet. It's on my list of things to start doing. Because my whole thing in the last year has been doing ceremonies, bringing things to the physical, right? Bringing things to the earth element. Because evoking fire element, akasha, easy as fuck. Really easy. Earth element, it's not that it's not easy. It's just that don't really want to do it. It's just imbalance. Imbalance takes many forms. It doesn't take the form always of like, oh, I can't do it. It takes the form of, I just don't want to go there, right? So you have to get this sort of balanced equation here of like what the energy is. And this is like, I'll just turn the camera around. Like this whole section here, this used to be overgrown like up to my shoulders with plants. But they've had this tractor come up here and rip it a new one apparently. So interesting. All those are avocados down there. Oh, there we go. COVID cough. So yeah, so that the thing is contemplation of elemental imbalance. If you're anything like me, it's the kind of thing like you want to rush through and solve it all, right? But that's not how contemplation works, right? So you really have to contemplate it. And also, not just contemplate actively, like contemplation, the imaginative world, but like sort of observational contemplation, observing what's happening. Now, in order to do that, you need to build up the concentration, right? So if you're going to have a useful contemplation, first you want to have concentration. And this goes back to the old concentration, and I almost forgot that word. What happens, you do hardcore concentration meditation, then when you move out to contemplation, it like, everything opens up. It becomes very easy to see what's happening in pure consciousness. So yeah, so that's been really interesting. It's really interesting to actually see sort of actual things working. Like, and also, I put this a lot down to like the Hecate stuff too, because the Hecate stuff is literally going into the shadow, right? Which again, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to study the Hecate stuff. All seemed really evil. But there's value in getting into that stuff, and not in an evil way, obviously, but because that's not the way it's taught. I mean, I think some people teach it that way, maybe, but they're not like good teachers, right? The Hecate stuff, as it's taught by Jason Miller, is, and Jason Miller, I'm not sure about his motivations. On his personal page the other day, he had a satanic meditation for wealth, and I'm like, he's like, I'm not Satanist. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, moral relativism is the new fundamentalism, right? So there you go. And why bother? Because there's lots of other meditations which work, which don't have karmic peculiarities or questionable, right? I mean, why would you do that? It's very easy to evoke Ganesha or liturgy, or without having to get into all this other stuff. Like, still, he's not an idiot. He does teach. He's got a surprising amount of knowledge. He's really knowledgeable, that guy. And he's got another class he does about Christian magic based on Saint Cyprian, who was some Christian saint who was evoking demons and the whole thing. And he's got a whole class. It's coming up in April, I think, based on that. Oh, hold on a second. You see, I used to cross over here. I used to cross this little piece of concrete, but back then they had like a tree which made it really easy to like grab onto. Whereas that doesn't, I think I could probably cross down here, but it's really nice. That part down there is really awesome to walk around. I like that part. But yeah, I could cross this, but I don't feel comfortable with the old stabilizer in hand to doing that. So there's another crossing point down here. You have to go down the hill, which is quite steep, but you can get down there. I just don't know. It's because you know, I damaged my meniscus last week, so I'm a bit, yeah, I think I'm not going to go down just because I don't want to stress out my knee, because it's not torn. It will get better. I just need to like take care of it, right? Don't push too hard, Scott. Right? Please. Look how blue that sky is. That's unbelievable. That's the iPhone sky, right? The iPhone's particularly good at like color balancing skies. Even in this, oh, this is like an iPhone 12 Pro Max. I kind of would thinking about buying one of the new ones just for the stabilization, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really do much different really at the end of the day, right? Why bother? Live video. How long have I been talking for? 46 minutes. Actually, I've been talking for an hour and a half, but the first part was lost in time. So yeah, I got a bunch of work at the moment. I got like 5 projects in. They're kind of staggered though, so I got to finish one today. I got another one which I'm finishing on Monday. I got stiffed on one of them. I got 2 other ones which are coming in soon, hopefully. I've signed the contract for everything, so that's good. And then, so that's work life. Kids are living with me now, so that's cool. And what's amazing is, I was looking, you know, like Facebook or whatever gives you these, even the iPhone gives you like memories from a year ago. A year ago, my kids weren't living with me. And I got some memories today of us. We went up to Santiago to see this Claude Monet. Somebody was doing big projections. They'd animated some, it was a Van Gogh scene. So they'd taken all the Van Gogh paintings and they'd animated them and they'd projecting them. And it was really badly done. Complete waste of money. But looking at the pictures, which we took that day, the photos, you know, that was before the kids were living with me, and there's a look on their face. They just look really fucking depressed. And their hair, my daughter in particular, her hair is all short and no identity. And now, dude, everybody's really happy, dude. Everybody, I have to admit though, I've been doing a bit of letter evocation around the house, you know. A lot of letter A's, creating space around everybody's problems so they can find their way out of it, frankly. But, you know, my daughter's like so happy now. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. She's probably watching this, actually, knowing her that the kids know my channel apparently, so not that I do much on here anymore, but I always have plans to come back and do like some kind of thing. Like these chats clearly don't drive traffic, you know. This is just like legacy media here, just for people who used to give a shit about what was happening on the channel, you know. But clearly the channel will never grow doing this kind of like material. I kind of played around with that for a while. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, hold on. Yes, I was talking about that whole thing about the vital energy and how being disconnected from the body, right? And how like the whole sexual energy thing never affected me, you know. It's like semen retention didn't make a difference, any of that stuff. It's just like the energy's always on. However, wrong about that too. It does make a difference, but it makes a difference on the vital field, right? And because if you're in the vital, if you get a strong vital field, the other energies become much more visceral or something. So yeah, so I've been doing that actually. And it wasn't something I was trying to do, right? Just the whole no orgasm thing, right? Zero for some time, and it's really quite liberating. That it's actually fucking feels great, and it creates it creates space. It creates a lot of space, and the whole thing with life force is that what happens is now that I'm more aware of the vital energy field and the sort of immediate life force field, which is right now. You don't have to use your imagination. That's just there. You just have to become aware of it. But fuck me, dude. Holy fuck. That's like a sheer drop off there. Let me see. Can I show you that? Let's gotta rotate carefully here. Let me just see if I can show you that. Right. That's like, hello. Where do you want to fall in? Here or here? Anyway, let me bring that back up. There we go. Boink. Hey, I'm back. So that does make a big difference, apparently. Not apparently. It's like, it's really crazy. So yeah. So especially if you don't feel energy. If you don't have the whole initiation thing going, fuck, dude, this is like, I didn't even see this when I came here on the way up. Fuck me, this is dangerous. But that whole thing, especially if you're not initiated, the whole sexual vital energy field, I'd say semen retention, not fapping. I think that's probably pretty important. And then you can do it the sting way, like the tantric way, right? So you can have sex and not have the orgasm, which is recommended by Chris Mitchell, the Kundalini guy, you know, because you preserve the energy. Now, I guess in Taoism, as you may know, that there's a whole philosophy around this. So one of the philosophies is like if you're doing Nikung. Qigong is moving the vital energy, right? Nikung it's almost more in the astral level, and you're pushing it, rather than having it in like an energy ball, you're pushing it into your bone marrow. So I can't remember the actual process here, but it goes something like bone marrow, blood, semen. And so there's a whole process which generates the semen, which in Taoist terms comes from the bone marrow. Now, maybe not physically, but like metaphysically, it comes from the bone marrow, and it's a slow process. So when you have an orgasm, you basically lose months worth of energy production. And so what happens is the vital energy, and see, I didn't realize this before, but like now that I'm aware of it, because it's life force energy, dude. So all of a sudden, the life force energy becomes available for other things, right? But it's hyper subtle, right? You might not even notice it, because I'm like surprised by it, like, oh wow, I didn't notice it, right? So on the vital qigong-y, I can feel energy in my hands. That level, that vital energy is getting misused by like 90% of the population. But if you can fucking control it, right? Stop the dopamine factory and control that shit, and it channels into, it flowers. It allows consciousness to flower in other directions, which might be more satisfying or more lucrative even, or whatever, right? Because all of a sudden there's all this life force energy available, which was previously getting just thrown away. It's my first day walking here for 2 years, so I'm probably going to call it quits as I run the corner here. Let me see. Wow. Coming around the corner. It'd be cool to have like a dual way camera, so you can talk and see where you're walking at the same time. That would be cool. Somebody should invent that. Both cameras on at the same time, right? Yeah, I miss walking out here. I used to come out here all the time. Really beautiful. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm coming to an end here of the chat. It's been about an hour. I didn't have anything planned to talk about as usual, but I'm avoiding talking about some of the more magical stuff, I guess, you know, keeping it cool. Yeah, had some cool evocations lately. Did the who did I evoke the other day? It was Odin. Evoked Odin the other day. Wasn't trying to. What happened is it's like the consciousness follows the mind. So I was trying to think about green, but I kept getting like tinges of red coming into the green color. I'm trying to do a contemplation on the color. And so red and green, I'm like, it's Christmas. And then, you know, you think Santa Claus, oh wait, that's Odin. Boom, Odin evokes. Real technical stuff. Had one of the Virgin Mary. Politics, I've got lots of political thoughts. Obviously, I tend not to talk about politics because you don't want to piss anybody off, right? So I was watching SpaceX liftoff yesterday with the 4 astronauts going to save the space station people. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. That's SpaceX, dude. Unbelievable. There's a lot of hatred of Elon Musk, whatever. I think there's a lot of really misinformed people about what's happening in the world. People don't seem to realize that Ukraine lost the war like a year ago, right? That's over. That's been over for a long time. And there's still what's happening. This is okay. I'm gonna give you the truth about what's happening in the world, just to tell you. I wish there was some shade around here. Where's the shade? There's gotta be some shade before I reveal the secrets. What's going on in the world is there's a guy from the 80s, 90s. He was a not very popular philosopher, politician guy called Lyndon LaRouche. That guy is really annoying to listen to. But one of his concepts, he actually sucks to listen to, but the people in his group, he's dead now, but he's got an organization. And some of the videos from the organization are very well done. Lyndon LaRouche, he was a bit of a genius, but he thought he was a genius too, and he's just all ego. But his contention was that the world is run by the British Empire. You're like, what? The British Empire ended 100 years ago? American Revolution, we won. That's not what happened. The world is being run from London by the British Empire, which has taken over NATO and the EU. And yeah, so I get that people want to be loyal to the EU, and those are the British or our natural allies, but yeah, the British people are. But the British government is being sold out to the fucking, what Lyndon LaRouche called the British Empire. A lot of people accused him of like using that as like a code word for the Jews, but that's not what he meant. It's literally worth investigating, because it's like there's a lot of like juice in that. I'll post it on the community. There's a really good video by his organization where they explain how what happened is in like, it's amazing. But like what happened is what was it, 1500, 1600 in Venice, the Venice banking got connected with the local aristocracy. Then they moved to the Netherlands, and then they moved to England. And so there was like a co-opting of banking and aristocratic families, and they became the empires of Europe. And they only pretended to vanish. And if you look at what's going on in the world, particularly in the EU, and particularly in NATO, and particularly like what's going on with, and also with the CIA, and a whole bunch of other things there's like some, yeah. Who knows what the actual details of all that is, but it's definitely not what some people think it is about just supporting our allies. Look, I lost 3 people already. You start mentioning the fucking banking cartel and you lose followers. But you know, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm home. I'll talk to you guys later. Maybe I'll do more walks. Peace.